What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker here on Unique Access Entertainment. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. As you guys know, it's free. It's right there. And that allows us to keep coming to you guys with these interviews. And we're trying to do more and more and more. So please, please, please subscribe right there. Unique Access Entertainment. Be sure to like, share, and talk about us so we can keep it going. Now, today, man, we got the honor and privilege of being joined by Rodney O. Rodney O, thanks for coming through, sir.
Not a problem. What's going on, brother?
Man, it's just good to have you on Unique Access. We're really excited and appreciative of that. And one of the things that I always enjoy about doing these interviews in general is learning because, I know stuff, but I don't know everything. And through doing talks with Mr. Mix and Brother Marquis in particular, they were really shouting you out and saying how instrumental you were to them getting on or working with them early in the game. So before we even get to Joe Cooley, General Jeff, and all that, how, when, and why did you meet up with Brother Marquis and Mr. Mix?
Well, Brother Marquis, which, Mark, he lived around the corner from me, and we went to school together. And so, walking to school, we would, start rapping and mess around. And I told him I was into music and this and that. And him being, I think he had moved from Rochester, New York or something like that. So to me, that was New York. You know what I mean? This was early on. So to me, when he said he rapped and he's from New York, I'm like, oh, okay. So, that's how we met, and that's how I knew him from living in my neighborhood in Riverside, California.
Okay. And then Mr. Mix, you had a separate relationship with him initially too, right?
Yeah. We had met, I believe, at some Uncle Jam or Uncle Jam's army parties or just little parties in the Riverside area, and we had met there, and he was in the Air Force at that time, and he was one of the only friends I had at that time that had a car because he was older than me. I was like, I think 13 or 14. He had a car, so anybody with a car, he was like, hey, come through, you know what I'm saying? We go roll in his whip and stuff like that, and he was DJing. He was in the Air Force, so he was, had the equipment and had records and stuff like that. Just everything that I was into, man. It was almost like with him having turntables and stuff like that. It was almost like him having a PlayStation when they first came out. You know what I mean? So we was, all into that, all into whatever record back then. Any hip hop record that came out, we bought. We didn't care what it was. We'd go to a place called Groove Time in San Bernardino, and any rap record that came out, we was on it. Any record, it didn't matter, fast, slow, it didn't matter. Any hip hop record, we was buying.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because growing up in Maryland, most of my friends liked, quote unquote, the East Coast New York rap, but I liked everything. So I tried to get the stuff they didn't get, which is how I got so into the West Coast, South, and Midwest, because I got basically 1.5 or twice as many records as my friends, because I made sure to get your guys' record or Above the Law or Who Two Live Crew,
right.
So it was a little
yeah, and it was like you was getting like it. I didn't look to see who it was. It was like who I would ask the store manager or whatever hip hop records came out, put them to the side. I wanted them. I didn't care what it was. Some were jewels, some weren't. You know what I'm saying? But I wanted them. Didn't matter.
And how, when, and why did you get so into rap early on in your life?
Well, I wasn't really a singer. You know what I mean? And rap just appealed to, it talked to me. Rappers Delight, New York, Mantronics. It just spoke to me, man. Like no other music. I mean, I like Prince, I like Parliament, Funkadelic, I liked all that too, but it just seemed like the rap. I wouldn't have been able to explain this to you back then, but it spoke to me then. You know what I mean? It was like my language. Looking for the perfect beat, the renegades of funk, it just spoke to me.
Yeah, well, did the same to me in Maryland, so I know what you mean. But
yeah.
That being said, how then did you end up getting up with Joe and Jeff? Joe Cooley, General Jeff.
Man, it came so many years later, man. From me initially starting out with Two Live Crew and stuff like that. I guess the best way to put it is I dabbled with the keyboards. I played keyboards. Well, not keyboards. I played piano because my mama had a piano in the house, so I would learn all the songs by ear. Playing piano, and so I had met Egyptian Lover. Well, me and Mark had made a record, a 45, and I gave it to Egyptian Lover at one of the Uncle Jam's Army parties, and he liked my voice. And
And when you say Mark, you mean Brother Marquis for those that
yeah,
don't. Right.
yeah, we did a record together from a guy who was had a little record company in Riverside, and I got that record to Uncle Jam's Army when they came to San Bernardino to throw a dance, and they was huge back then, for us. And I gave it to Egyptian Lover. He said he liked my voice and wanted to work, and to me he was, Egypt, and so I came out and and so we set it up to where well, actually he needed somebody to play. So his brother had quit his group, or he had kicked him out or something like that. And he called me one day. He's like, "Hey man, can you play my songs?" And I could play them, but I wasn't great at it. But I'm lying. Yeah, I know how to play them all. Blah blah blah. So after I got off the phone with him, I went and learned all of his records on the piano, and we went out on a little tour. So I'm like 15 years old, man, out with Egyptian Lover on tour. So I started, telling him about how I wanted to make records and stuff like that. So I cut a couple of records, and we was doing a show in Phoenix. And at that time, our manager was like, "Hey man, if you ever need anybody to scratch on your records, there's this dude named Joe Cooley. I've never seen nothing like it." So I made the track for Everlasting Bass and went in the studio, and I told my manager, "Hey, that dude you was telling me about, why don't you pick him up? Let's see what he can do." He couldn't wait to go pick this dude. He's like, "Man, I'll go pick him up." So he went to, I think Joe was living in Compton at the time, went and picked him up and brought him to the studio, and he tore the record up so good, I just rewrote the song and put his name in it and all that. And that's how Joe got in the group, because of what he did in the session. And Jeff I knew because he was with Bobby Jimmy and the Critters, and they was putting out records and stuff like that, and he was around Egypt at the time, had a relationship with Uncle Jam's Army. So I hooked up with him because of him being around so much.
Okay. And I know Egyptian Lover is somebody that a lot of people know, but they don't know. So the interesting thing is he was early in the game having his own label with Egyptian Empire Records. So what did you learn from him musically and on a business sense really early?
Recording, watching him in the studio record, watching him program, watching him play, because he would write, produce, do everything himself. You know what I mean? So when he would turn off the stuff or walk away from the equipment, I was there tinkering with it. You know what I mean? So just watching him, my style of music was different, of course. I liked what he was doing, but I always had a vision of what I wanted to do as far as musically. And just me being around him and living with him and having access to all the equipment. And then he was running his own label with his girlfriend, and seeing how the day-to-day operations went. And what was different was, back then I was more curious about how the records got on the radio and how to promote the records more than actually making the records. That's why I broke off and did start my own company and stuff like that, because I seen the day-to-day operations that they was going through. And I seen that you had to spend money to make money. You just don't make a record and people automatically hop on it. You have to, you have to pay people, man, to get them interested. And I was interested in the business aspect of that.
Okay. Gotcha. So then back to the creative side with the DJs and MCs, what was the chronology of when that song got recorded as far as early on for you guys?
There was really no MC and DJs back then, and I knew I had, like I used to tell Joe, I was like, to me, you're like Eddie Van Halen. You're like Jimi Hendrix. Like when you scratch on the records, it's like a solo. So that's why I always wanted to incorporate Joe into my records as a turntablist, and whenever he got down, it was like a guitar solo to me, because he was just that good with it and had that much rhythm, cutting and scratching. Like if you listen to a lot of our records, he has solos on a lot of them where he's just going off, especially like Cooley High and Supercuts. I mean, he'll go on for almost like a verse for 16 bars of just cutting, but what he was doing, nobody else was doing.
Yeah. Well,
and that's what I wanted to bring out. I wanted to be an MC, DJ, type thing. I wanted to showcase what he was doing and make party records, make feel good records.
Right. And then on the song DJs and MCs, to that point, but a little different, was I always liked we saw this on a lot of records of the era, but I think you guys did it longer or more or better, however you want to look at it. But the back and forth where you'd say one thing and then they go back and forth for like a whole verse.
That was something that I was proud of doing, man, that I wanted to do. And I don't know what made me do that. I guess we'd be in the studio and I would hear him mess with the word. And I'm like, man, you know what? But, back then it wasn't like now to where I could say something, we could throw it in the computer and put it on the turntables and then the words right there. So we had to use what was out there, acapellas and stuff like that. So there wasn't a whole bunch of words that he could cut to match what I was doing in my verses. But we made it work, man. I would think about the records that were acapellas and what we could use from this record or that record and incorporate it in my verses. So it wasn't easy, man, because there wasn't a lot of stuff out there. But we made it happen, man. And like you said, I would try and incorporate it in a whole verse.
Yeah. And then he also, I guess, raps on the song, I guess you would want to say, which was, I guess, early for DJs to appear as artists on the record. So what gave you guys that idea on DJs and MCs?
Well, Joe was always chomping at the bit to get on the mic, and he really didn't want to do it. But you got to understand, back then there wasn't features like that. You know what I'm saying? It's like it was kind of, I wouldn't say a no-no, but it kind of felt that way to have other people come in on your record and rap. You know what I mean? It wasn't like back then there wasn't features. I wasn't going to get King T or Mixmaster Spade or somebody to come rap on the record. So who else was going to do it? He was the only one around. He was in the group. So he wasn't a rapper like that, but we can make it work. We didn't look at it like, oh, you got to get on here and tear it up. We just did what we did.
Be sure to check out the History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
There will be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
What's that 5 on Yo MTV back with NWA?
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national
gangbang rappers.
The history of gangster rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
It's always gonna be shit happening in the street. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The history of gangster rap in stores now.